I'm a firm believer in the biggest populations of fish live close to the main lake. And after the spawn's over, I'd say 70% of your fish are towards the big body of water. And that's where the more stable conditions are, that's where the cooler water temperatures are, that's where the forage base is, and that's where you're gonna find your most productivity. I like to tell people to kind of, when they're driving down the highway, put it in your head that, you know, if this was filled with water, what it would look like, you know, and some of the busiest places on the highways are intersections. And that's the same thing that I look for out here on these lakes. I look for intersections. I look for a travel route where fish can come from this way and they can come from this way, and they point up and they meet right here in that spot. You know, if you find a sweet spot out here, or 3 or 4 sweet spots out here, they just tend to have more potential to replenish each and every day, as opposed to just going down a bank and fishing a dock or a laydown. When you're out here fishing offshore, you're gonna spend a lot of time behind the steering wheel looking at your electronics. You know, I'm gonna follow my contour lines, I'm gonna follow my avionics, and I'm looking for the intersections, I'm looking for the points, I'm looking for, you know, something different. I'm looking for where those fish will meet up, you know, maybe 2 different travel routes. I'll drop a few waypoints. Hopefully I'll see some fish on my graph. That'd be the ideal case scenario, is see some fish. A lot of times the fish will be real tight to the structure. Say they'll be tight to a stump or brush pile or something, and they won't show up on a graph, but I'll mark that structure and come back and fish it, you know, after it's settled down from me islanding around it. I primarily like to start with a search bait, some type of crankbait. You know, this is a Strike King Series 5. A crankbait is a real efficient way to cover water offshore, and Strike King makes a complete lineup. You know, they cover it from 1 foot all the way down to, we got the 10XD now that'll go as deep as 25 foot. But it's also a big fish bait. You can catch big fish on a plug. You know, if you find a school of fish, the crankbait will trigger the biggest fish in that school to bite. Great search bait, great big fish bait. It's one of my favorites for fishing offshore. When you get out here and say you found a school of fish with a crankbait and the bite slowed, I always try to have like a 2-pronged approach to these fish. And one of the other baits that I have a lot of confidence in, and it's kind of my backup deal, after I feel like I've exhausted the crankbait on a spot, I've given it multiple opportunities, I always come back with a worm, a jig. I want a different bait. I want to show them something different. This particular bait is a Strike King raised tail cutter worm. I'll usually use a 3/8 to a 1/2 ounce weight, just Texas rig it. And I'm gonna fish it through the same areas I've been fishing the crankbait, but it's gonna give the fish a different look. And a lot of times that's all it takes, you know, to get that school fired back up again is, you know, just show them a different bait. A worm, a jig, maybe even throw a big spoon on them. One of the first things I do, if I make a cast and I get a bite, I set the hook, but as soon as I set the hook and I get that fish coming, I instantly come down here to my graph and I'll punch a waypoint and I pay close attention to that angle of that cast that I just made. You can kick a buoy out, which I do a lot of times, but pay real close attention. Not only, you know, do you punch a waypoint, but be sure you line that cast up on that cast so you can make that same exact cast. You know, when you get out here offshore, you kind of lose sight. You know, you don't have a stump you're casting at, a visible target that you're casting at. So it's really, really important to pay real close attention to your electronics, pay close attention to the angle of the cast that you made, drop your waypoint as soon as you get that bite and try to make that repetitive cast. Because a lot of times these fish out here will be in a spot no bigger than my boat here, but there may be 50 fish right there. And if you miss them by 4 or 5 foot, you don't get a bite, but you're that close to, you know, finding the mother lode. But the most important thing to do is just dedicate yourself to it. You can't just come out here for 2 or 3 hours and expect to figure it out real fast. Spend your time out here, say I'm not gonna make a cast at the bank today, I'm gonna dedicate my day to fishing offshore. That gives you the confidence that you can go out there and find another spot just like the one you found.